Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
This is why, of course, she's on The View and not working for the most powerful man in the world, because Karoline would wipe the floor with you bitter banshees any day.
Joe Biden knows how to do this. Yes, he knows how to do this. He's quite good at this. And you know, you can't refute anything with him because he just, when I say him, I mean...
He rambles.
Trump.
Yeah.
He tends to just...
But can I mention one thing?
A few days back, we shared the intense verbal exchange between the new White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, and Whoopi Goldberg. Get ready, because what you're about to see is truly shocking.
I, too, am a working mom and always have been. I've been a professional woman since I graduated from college or law school. But now there's, I think, a good thing, which is like the restoration of valuing so-called traditional, moms, and that's great. The women who take care of their kids full time, most of my best friends are doing exactly that. But it seems like in the right, there's like a bit of a shift toward like, you can't do what Karoline's doing. That's actually like an unsafe or a dangerous or a bad choice for families, for children, which I reject wholesale, but you hear it more and more.
Yeah.
Do you hear that, and what do you think of it?
Right from the start, the usual crowd did what they do best, lost their minds and tried to mom shame her. Apparently, if you dare to outsmart Whoopi Goldberg, the so-called queen of woke, her loyal followers will swarm like Twitter trolls on a trending topic. And with this crowd, nothing, and I mean nothing, is off limits. Not your argument, not your character, and definitely not your family. So what was their big response after Leavitt completely outmatched Goldberg on live TV? Did they challenge her facts? Question her professionalism? Nope. Instead, they took a trip back to the 1950s and asked, why is a mother of a 7-month-old even working? Yes, the same people who constantly say women can do it all suddenly hit the brakes, deciding that this particular working mom had somehow crossed a line. Apparently, if you make a talk show host look bad, you're supposed to go home, bake cookies, and think about your actions. The hypocrisy is off the charts. Self-awareness, nowhere to be found.
I would reject that it's a bad choice. Is it a tough choice? Absolutely. You know, as a mother, you want to be with your child 24/7. You have that maternal instinct.
27.
Yeah. Not all the time. Well, right now, yes, because he's 7 months and just squishy and lovable, but I'm sure that will change. You do have that maternal instinct, but also recognizing, like, I'm doing this work for my son and for all children to make this country better. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yes. It's also it's temporary, right? In 4 years, my son will be 4 years old and the president will no longer be at the White House. And then I'll move on and do something else. But, this chaos of 24/7 work is a temporary matter. And that's what at least I tell myself to get through these very long and hard days. But I would reject that you can't be a good mom and be good at your job. I think you can do both. It's not for everybody. And it takes a lot of work and will and faith and prayer. And it's hard, but it can be done. And, I would reject that.
Just like that, Karoline Leavitt shuts down the outrage with ease, like swatting a fly with a sledgehammer. She calmly lays out what should be obvious. You can balance a career and motherhood without having to choose one over the other. Groundbreaking, right? Somebody call the research institutes. But here's where Leavitt really changes the game. She fully embraces traditional values, openly admitting that balancing work and raising a child is challenging and not the right fit for everyone. Shocking, I know. A woman saying, hey, my lifestyle isn't one size fits all. Unlike the usual you must have it all or you've failed feminism mindset, Leavitt takes a more level-headed approach. She respectfully points out that women who choose full-time motherhood deserve just as much respect as those who pursue careers. Because believe it or not, raising the next generation is just as important as climbing the corporate ladder. In the end, Leavitt doesn't just win the argument, she exposes the hypocrisy for what it is, performative empowerment mixed with a dose of mom shaming. And just when you think things couldn't get any worse, the outrage machine finds a way to sink even lower. Cue the conspiracy theorists.
I mean, I gotta ask you, because they said it, are you aware of any plots from Elon Musk to push President Trump down the stairs?
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that. And watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him, they have shamed him, they have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality.
Yes, you heard that right. The same people who claim to be champions of facts, evidence, and logic have officially swapped their "science is real" yard signs for tinfoil hats. They've now dipped into conspiracy theories so absurd they sound like something you'd hear from a guy on the street corner shouting at passersby with a cardboard sign. And their latest wild theory? Brace yourself for this one. Apparently, Elon Musk, the man busy launching rockets and revolutionizing technology, has some secret plan to take down Trump by pushing him down the stairs. Yes, seriously, because nothing says billionaire mastermind like playground level tactics. And who's leading this groundbreaking investigation? None other than the brightest minds over at The View, a group of daytime talk show hosts who seem to think they're running a congressional hearing from their coffee table. Why? Because Leavitt completely dismantled their leading lady, and now they're out for revenge. And who better to go after than her boss, Donald Trump, and his friend Elon Musk? It's like watching a satire sketch unfold in real time. But Karoline Leavitt wasn't about to let that nonsense go unchecked. She hit back with some sharp words that didn't just expose how ridiculous the claim was, but left the conspiracy theorists scrambling to come up with their next half-baked theory.
A lot of women are preparing themselves for the impact of the incoming administration, which has led to this growing mantra from male right-wing incels. Your body, my choice. Say that to my face.
Whoopi Goldberg, never one to back down easily, decided to take another shot at Karoline Leavitt, but of course not directly. Even she knows that taking Leavitt head-on would be a disaster. So instead of addressing her outright, Goldberg went after Trump instead. And that's when she did the unthinkable. Right there on national television, she actually spat after saying Trump's name, like some cartoon villain tasting defeat. Classy, right? Because nothing says thoughtful debate like spitting on cue. Leavitt wasn't about to let that slide. She clapped back with sharp precision and undeniable force, calling out the absurdity of it all. "This is what debate has come to now?" she scoffed. "When you can't argue with facts, you resort to playground antics? Imagine being so rattled by someone's name that you start spitting like a toddler refusing to eat broccoli. It's beyond embarrassing. No wonder daytime TV ratings are tanking." And she didn't stop there. Leavitt called out the hypocrisy loud and clear. These are the same people who constantly preach about civility and respect, yet here they are, turning a national broadcast into some slapstick comedy routine. By the time Leavitt was done, Goldberg's so-called bold statement looked less like defiance and more like sheer desperation.
Austin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from sunny Austin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Austin.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Sunny Hostin recently found herself in the spotlight, but not for the usual reasons. Known for her strong opinions on racial justice, reparations, and systemic oppression, she's built her career on standing up for what she believes is right. But her appearance on PBS's Finding Your Roots took an unexpected turn, shaking up that image. In a surprising twist, Sunny learned that her ancestors weren't victims of oppression, they were actually slave owners. That's right, a vocal advocate for reparations discovered that her own family had directly benefited from the very system she has long condemned. Her reaction? A mix of shock, hesitation, and an awkward attempt to brush it off as just part of history. Greg Gutfeld didn't let this slide. With his signature sharp humor, he pointed out what he saw as clear hypocrisy. His take struck a nerve, igniting discussions everywhere. Should this revelation change how people view Sonny's activism? And when someone speaks about accountability, does their own personal history matter? Let's take a closer look at this explosive moment. Sunny Hostin, a well-known co-host on The View, has built her reputation on being outspoken about racial justice and identity politics. But now, people are questioning whether her message still holds the same weight in light of this discovery.
It was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe.
Sunny Hostin often presents herself as a strong model voice, passionately speaking on issues like reparations and systemic oppression. She doesn't hold back when criticizing white privilege and is a firm believer in holding people accountable for America's historical injustices. Her advocacy is centered around bringing awareness to equity and confronting uncomfortable truths about race and privilege. Over the years, she has become a prominent figure in the push for reparations and a fierce, unapologetic commentator on systemic racism. But her appearance on PBS's Finding Your Roots took an unexpected turn, one that neither she nor her audience saw coming. Viewers tuned in expecting a familiar narrative, an ancestral history of oppression that aligned with her strong stance on racial justice. Instead, what they got was a shocking revelation. Sunny's ancestors weren't victims of oppression. They were actually slave owners. Her reaction, pure disbelief. She stumbled over her words, clearly caught off guard, and made an awkward attempt to downplay the revelation as just a fact of history.
How are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Sunny was visibly shaken, struggling to process what she had just learned. After a pause, she hesitantly admitted, "I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican. I never imagined my family were slaveholders." The silence that followed was thick with irony. It didn't take long for the internet to explode. Social media was flooded with memes mocking the moment, including one that read, "Reparations? Let me write that check to myself real quick." While some fans defended her, many couldn't ignore the glaring contradiction between her personal history and the views she so passionately promotes. The revelation reignited discussions about accountability and whether personal history should factor into activism. Sunny, who is usually the one calling out others, now found herself on the receiving end of criticism. Greg Gutfeld didn't waste any time delivering a sharp, humorous take on the situation. His most cutting remark? Sunny's ancestors were slave owners. That's like finding out a vegan secretly owns a barbecue joint.
On, new episodes of The View when she tries to pull the race card.
Yes.
And then she's like, America is racist. And then they're like, yeah, they might be racist, but they're not like slave owner racist. like somebody that we...
That's so true.
Yeah.
One thing, and I would have even actually not give her any, is she said, well, I guess that's just what they did back then.
Yeah.
She should have followed that up with saying something along the lines of, and I understand that that's a departure from the way I've talked about this before.
The punchline landed perfectly, and the audience burst into laughter. But Gutfeld didn't just stop at making jokes. He used the moment to call out what he saw as blatant hypocrisy. For years, Sunny has been outspoken about holding others accountable for their ancestry, often framing her arguments around systemic oppression and historical responsibility. Yet, when confronted with her own family's troubling past, she seemed to shrug it off, calling it just a fact of life. Gutfeld didn't let that slide. He pointed out how moments like these reveal the risks of identity politics, when the story someone pushes doesn't quite match the reality. He argued that Sunny's moral high ground had taken a serious hit, and stressed the importance of self-awareness and nuance when discussing complicated topics like race and history.
It is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she was.
Well, now we understand why she always makes Whoopi get the coffee.
Exactly, because if she is shaming descendants of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them?
Gutfeld explained that reducing complex issues to identity-based narratives can sometimes lead activists like Sunny to overlook important context, including their own contradictions. The real irony, he pointed out, wasn't just that Sunny's ancestors were involved in a system she passionately opposes, but that she avoided taking the moment to reflect on it. Instead, she quickly brushed past it, downplaying its significance. His commentary struck a chord with many who saw this as a prime example of what happens when moral superiority runs up against uncomfortable truths. To Gutfeld, this wasn't just about Sunny. It was a bigger lesson on how personal accountability often takes a back seat to performative outrage. After Sunny's shocking family history came to light, the internet wasted no time reacting. Social media exploded with memes and jokes, including one particularly viral caption, "Reparations? Let me write that check to myself real quick." Platforms like Twitter and TikTok were flooded with a mix of sharp humor and strong opinions, making the moment impossible to ignore.
You know, in her defense, everyone has ancestors that did unspeakably horrible things. It's just that not everyone's ancestors have records tied to their DNA about it. Worried for Sunny Hostin's progeny in the future that do a DNA test and find out that they were related to a cast member of The View. And they're like, oh, it all makes so much sense now why I'm so stupid and fat.
Some people defended Sunny, saying she shouldn't be blamed for what her ancestors did, but many others couldn't ignore the obvious contradiction. Sunny, who has built her platform on holding others accountable for their history, seemed to brush off her own with nothing more than a casual shrug, calling it just a fact of life. This sparked a heated debate. Should public figures like Sunny be held to the same moral standards they demand from others? Critics argued that her response lacked the reflection and growth expected from someone so outspoken about accountability. The irony of the situation made sure the backlash didn't fade quickly, keeping the conversation going for weeks. The fallout from Sunny's revelation didn't just stir up controversy, it also made things awkward on The View. When the bombshell dropped about her ancestors being slave owners, the usual lively energy at the table disappeared into an uncomfortable silence. Even Whoopi Goldberg, known for her quick comebacks, hesitated, seemingly unsure how to handle such an ironic twist. Meanwhile, over on Greg Gutfeld's panel, the reaction was the complete opposite. His co-hosts didn't hold back, throwing in sharp but playful jabs. One even joked that Sunny might have to start shaming herself for her family's past. The panel's laughter drove home their criticism of what they saw as her double standards, further exposing the cracks in her moral high ground. Rosie O'Donnell also weighed in, offering a more thoughtful perspective on the situation.
Guess there's nothing worse than to find out you're a white woman.
She's so disappointed.
It's really disappointing.
Her mother was white.
Oh my
The
God.
shame.
Oh my God.
The horror. History, and finds out that she's, this is fantastic. She is descended from slaveholders. She's descended from slaveholders, and she's been apparently getting a lot of mail about her call for reparations because it turns out she's going to be paying them and not actually receiving them.
Rosie O'Donnell emphasized that people should be judged by their actions, not their ancestry, while also pointing out how identity politics can sometimes oversimplify complex issues like race and history. Her perspective highlighted how discoveries like these can challenge rigid narratives and force uncomfortable self-reflection. The reactions from both Sunny's supporters and critics revealed a clear divide. Some saw this as an opportunity to discuss personal accountability, while others viewed it as yet another example of identity politics backfiring in a big way. No matter where people stood, the tension surrounding Sunny's response was impossible to ignore. Her reaction to her family's shocking past felt like a missed opportunity. Instead of using the moment to reflect or start a meaningful conversation about the complexities of ancestry and accountability, she brushed it off as just a fact of life. For someone who has built a career on holding others to high moral standards, this casual dismissal left many feeling unsatisfied. This could have been a moment of growth. Sunny had the chance to acknowledge the irony, share her personal struggle with reconciling her family's past, and use the revelation to deepen discussions about historical injustices. It could have served as a powerful reminder reminder that no one's history is simple or without contradictions, but instead, the focus shifted to her perceived hypocrisy and unwillingness to confront her own past, turning what could have been a meaningful dialogue into yet another debate over accountability. Sunny's story is a clear example that no one's history is without complexity, and that moral certainty can quickly unravel when inconvenient truths come to light. Her situation raises an important question. If you demand accountability from others, shouldn't you be willing to hold yourself to the same standard? With the internet's reaction, viral memes, and Greg Gutfeld's sharp commentary, this moment isn't fading anytime soon. Whether Sunny chooses to address it head-on or ignore it completely will shape how people remember her.